Dao Min,
Yes.
do you know, is Greg also on with the Board of Finance meeting
No.
that's
Yeah.
ongoing?
He's in Board of Selectmen now. Greg already in.
He's in Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He has presentation ready too. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Greg.
Greg.
Oh,
How'd you hit him today, Greg?
didn't play, Harry.
Why not?
It's a beautiful day. Okay. Oh, there's Steve. Okay. Yeah, we're giving you a few more minutes there, Steve, but now thank you for joining us. You're muted though.
There we go. Yeah, for some reason I wasn't being allowed into the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We have all the selectmen here. Would everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I have a flag behind me.
Yeah. Pledge allegiance.
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hi, guys.
Can I ask you a quick question before we start?
Sure.
With meetings with large numbers of people, would it be inappropriate for one person to do the Pledge of Allegiance instead of everybody in?
Yeah, we could do that. That's appropriate.
I'm just saying, like sometimes I'm on a meeting and there might be 20 people, and it sounds like a death dirge or something. Everybody's on, but I just didn't want to be disrespectful. But I thought,
yeah. It's a good point. Maybe we'll do that in the future. Just one person repeats it because there is a delay. So you can't all speak at the same time. It gets a little odd. That's a good point, Harry. Marcia is still sitting on the Board of Finance meeting. So we're hoping she'll be able to join us shortly. I'll start with announcements. A report from our Director of Public Health today. There are no new cases reported since the 29th of July. Our numbers are still at 180 cases in Brookfield. There are no new deaths or hospitalizations reported. The definite trend is towards younger persons with positive parents. In talking to Doc Sullivan, I think that virtually all the cases we've had in the last month have been intra-house, so within the same household. And that's good. And so that's a very positive step. It looks like state numbers are going up slightly. It seems like we're getting the squeeze. Rhode Island's numbers are going up. New York's numbers are going up. We're caught in the jaw of coronavirus. Second announcement, we just went out to bid for the borrowing for the new school. And in doing that, we had to get our updated rating from Standard & Poor's, and they've confirmed our AAA rating and actually rated our debt above the national debt, above the sovereign is what they call it. So you would be happy to know that Brookfield has better credit than the United States of America. Of course, so that's good. As a direct result of that, we went out to bid and we got 11 bidders on our bond issue last Thursday. And our 10-year capital plan called for us to pay between 4 and 6% on the borrowing for the new school. And we came in at 1.55%, 1.4549. So it's 1.55% over, because we thought we would be coming in so low and have better funding opportunities. We decided to go from a 30-year bond for the school to a 20-year bond. And we will save, if we borrowed at 6%, we will save over $36 million in interest. So we're save about just over $20 million versus borrowing at 4%. So we had very good response. We had 11 bids, which we usually only get 3 or 4 on our bond issues. But in times like this, there is always a flight to quality. So if you have very good ratings in your municipal debt, there are entities who want to buy very safe investments. And Brookfield is one of those. So that's really good. Our coffee with the community, which is normally scheduled on the last Saturday of each month at different locations through town, due to COVID-19, a virtual meeting will be held instead on August 24th at 5:30 p.m. Links for online access and call-in will be on the meeting agenda. Residents are welcome to join the meeting by YouTube for viewing or via Zoom or call in to participate with any questions, comments, or concerns for the selectmen. You have correspondence. I don't think we had any. I don't see any listed here. I know we did get one letter today about 5G. Marcia is not with us yet. She's still sitting on the, so I would make a motion that we move to the presentations and have Greg Dembowski give us his presentation. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Harry seconds that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Greg, you want to give us a presentation?
Yeah, so I have two, and Min's going to pull them up. So the first is to talk about the Lower Federal Road project. And this is a 2-page presentation. So this first page is just a real quick story on what we're hoping to do today. And the second is a map. So just as a reminder, the Lower Federal Road project runs from BJ's to Barmbek Place. And it's all about intersection upgrades, adding turning lanes, sidewalks, and 7 bus shelters. It's an $8 million project funded by the state, mostly federal money. They are very close to final design. And what's going on now is the completion of 10 right-of-way acquisitions. And the state has been in front of the ZBA now several times to wrap up those acquisitions. And then starting in either late 21 or early 22, they're going to start relocating about 60 utility poles and construction will commence. We had a conference call with the DOT a couple of weeks ago, and everything is still on schedule. But they did say with caution, there's a chance this and other projects can slip because of COVID and budget constraints. That hasn't happened yet, but they said there's a chance that could happen. So just be aware of that. If there's any changes of schedule, I will be certain to let you know. So there's 2 matters at hand today that they're looking for a decision on to finalize the construction plans. And once they're finalized, it'll be a matter of going out to bid. So they want to wrap these things up. And these have been on the table now for about a half a year. The first is we need to make a decision on naming a new road. I think I discussed this with you a couple of months back, but there's a very short road that's being created because of the rerouting of Old Route 7. And I took that suggestion that was actually by by Jay Purcell to the Planning Commission, and they approved the recommended name of Wagon Wheel Way. So I'll show you the map in a second as a reminder, but the reason the state wants to know is the property at 2 Old New Milford Road is going to have a new property address, and all of the tenants in that condominium association, are going to have to notify their customers and such. So they want to get that decision kind of on the way. The second matter is relatively new, and that is the land release. So as they reroute Old Route 7, the state would like to release a piece of their road to the town. And that's accordance to this section 13A-80 in the general statutes that allows them to do this. The reason they want to do this is that land has no value to anybody. I don't think either to us or to the state. And in exchange for the town accepting that release, the project would pick up landscaping of that part of land, putting in trees and shrubs and some nice sod and that kind of thing. If the town decides that for whatever reason, we don't want to accept that release, we could purchase it and do what we want with it. And if we don't agree with that option, we can appeal any option given to us. So that's the 2 matters at hand. So let's go to the map if we can. And maybe if can we turn that sideways down, Min? Is that possible?
Yeah, rotate it clockwise.
Yeah. So the shaded area is the land release. And if you can just, kind of orientate yourself, that's old Route 7 getting rerouted from how it's angled in front of the ramen noodle house to the driveway across the street where there's that little strip mall. And those circles are the trees and shrubs that the state would plant. And that little jog of a road, which is the now a dead end for old Route 7, is that little road extension that needs a name. So those are the two matters at hand. I think I've shared this map with you before. In the lower left-hand corner are the sizes, the names, and the quantities of all the trees and shrubs they would plant. You can see all that there. So that's the two matters, and I'll take any questions or.
So I'd just like to make a comment here. Greg and I have discussed this. If the town doesn't accept this property, the state is not going to improve it at all. And they will maintain it the way they maintain every other road, which means maybe they'll cut it once every 6 weeks, 8 weeks over time. You can see what they're doing, like on 133. They just started cutting on 133 and it's August already. So if we accept this land, they will landscape it completely for us and get it set to be a nice property. The only drawback is we would then have to maintain it. But if we don't, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess. And I don't think we want that on Federal Road.
Greg,
Yes.
I know, we've talked about the name of the road and where we came up with it and all that, but I'm thinking for maybe someone who's watching tonight who doesn't understand where Wagon Wheel Way came from. Could you just explain that for us?
Well, again, it was Jay Purcell's idea, and it brings a little bit of history back into a restaurant that was named the Wagon Wheel many, many years ago. In fact, when my kids were young, we used to go there for dinner and such. And it's been turned over and changed names many times since then. But it was Jay's idea as a way to preserve a little bit of the history in our town by naming it after that business that was there, that restaurant.
Yeah, it was Lavelle's Wagon Wheel from the 60s, right, Greg?
Yes.
Right.
It was there for forever. I remember going there.
Right. So now people might understand why we come up with that name, but yeah,
Right.
no, I agree. I think it was a great suggestion from Jay.
Yeah, I do too. And the state wanted to name it Old New Milford Road Extension.
Right.
That's a catchy name. So I think Wagon Wheel Way is a good way to do it. And the Planning Commission has approved it.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Do we need
any
to,
other-
we need a motion? Yep.
No, we need two motions. I'll make the motion that the selectmen make a motion to request that the state release its right of way at 316 Federal Road to the town in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 13A-80. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Sue,
Go
second.
ahead, Harry.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Harry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Greg, did the town, I just can't remember, does the town assist at all with the ramen house in finding another location, or are they on their own? Or did they get relief from the state?
The town has nothing to do with that relocation. The state is working with them to relocate their business and hopefully relocate it to Brookfield. Now, if they can't find a place under favorable terms, there is a way where there is a financial incentive for them to basically cash out. I believe that I've been told that transaction's complete, and I don't know if Ramen Noodle House is going to reopen anywhere, in Brookfield or anywhere else. But I believe the state now owns both of the parcels that they needed to take for this new intersection.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Harry?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
Maybe again, just as we've discussed in the past, but anyone maybe who is not aware of what that is, the reason that the state wants to do this is because it's a high traffic area that has had lots of accidents. So the state has come to us and said they need to do this, and that's why we're doing this.
Right, it's gonna take the road that comes from the YMCA and put it directly across from where O'Connor's and the Wood Bin are, and they're gonna put a light in there So it will make it a lot safer. It'll make it a lot safer because if you're coming up Old New Milford Road, it's because of the angle of the road, it's almost impossible to look over your shoulder to the left, north, to see what cars are coming. And this will change that and make it much safer. This all, if you remember, all started 5 years ago when we went to the state and said, all we want is a left-hand turn lane at Chick-fil-A. And the state came up with, they started with what, Greg? It was a $20 million project to redo all the Lower Federal Road?
Yeah, there were actually two different projects, one at this intersection and one down by Chick-fil-A. And there were a lot of accidents in between with all the congestion with Costco and everything else going on. It's a very high, a high density area for automobile accidents. So they decided to combine it all into one big project instead of different projects. So I think that was a great idea. And luckily, unfortunately, because of all the accidents, it's allowed the project to stay on schedule where other projects are being cut.
Yeah, because it's a mess there on the weekends. It really is. Okay. If there's no further discussion on this, the motion to request that the state release its right of way, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Harry, you and I, or no?
Oh, I'm saying aye.
He says aye, okay. Second, I would make the motion that the selectmen name the new road being created as a result of this project, Wagon Wheel Way. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? You like that name, Harry?
I do like that way. I frequented the old wagon wheel many times.
Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, carries 3-0. Marcia's still not here. So Greg, why don't we move on to the steep, I make a motion that we move on to the steep grant application. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's get, Greg.
Okay, so this second agenda item is, I've got a few more pages to this, so let me just get started. On July 9th, honestly, much to my surprise, because it hasn't happened in a couple years, OPM announced another round of steep grant solicitations. 4 days later, on July 13th, they issued their program description and guidelines. And here we are today talking about basically giving us not 11 days where we have to complete an application deadline for this grant. So I've talked to Steve and others several times since July 9th, and I have two proposals in front of you, and we need to pick one by the Board of Finance meeting next Wednesday so we can meet the application deadline. Now, what's really different about this steep solicitation are a few things that I'd like to go through briefly. The first is you can look at that solicitation by going on the OPM website, but you'll see that they've set as the highest priority COVID-related capital projects. And then they talk about shovel-ready and promoting economic growth are the next three priorities. And there's 5 or 6 even after that. But what's different now is with this steep solicitation is the town is required to make a match. There's no minimum, but you have to state the amount the town is matching. And you have to state the date on when you're going to be seeking that town approval if you don't have it already. That's actually a required field in the application. Something else that's different is now you must use it or lose it, and it must be spent within 3 years. That's not how the steep process was in the past. They were pretty much open-ended. And you're not allowed to rescope the project. You're only given the money for a specific application and no rescoping. And lastly, the other big change is you may remember steep grants used to be $500,000 grants. Now the maximum allowable is $128,205. So these are the constraints we're now working in. And with that in mind, I've prepared a little information on 2 projects that I like to put in front of you and then take one or both of them for a vote to the Board of Finance next Wednesday.
So can I interrupt just for a second, Greg? So the Board of Selectmen has already approved the steep grant for the Still River Greenway. If you remember, we did that under the auspices of the COVID-19 pandemic executive order that we could go forward without having a town meeting because there's a possibility, there is a possibility, it definitely a financial loss of losing the grant if you don't apply for it in time and get it approved. So I think we can do it under our executive order privileges that we can say to the state that this has been approved by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. And the reason we used that was using the executive order as issued by the governor for possible financial loss. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, so the next 5 pages, I want to talk about what is kind of at least a new idea to me, and this is the redesign of the town hall offices in response to the COVID pandemic. And then I'll briefly give you an update on the Still River Greenway extension project and how we've actually cut some cost out of there to make it less expensive to the town. So let's start with the redesign of the town hall offices. Before I do, I just want to show you these 2 pages. If we can shrink that screen down a little bit, Damin, this is the OPM website. And if anybody's interested in seeing or learning how these grants get announced, you can look for yourself. There it is. You can click on all those links. And there it is on July 13th when it was announced, and July 9th when the governor announced it, and July 13th when the application process opened. And on the second page, where she is now, it just gives you some important changes. There's the program guidelines that I summarized for you. And there's other links you can look at just to get a sense for how OPM announces steep grant applications. So that's just a little background for you. And we'll go to the next page. So what really brought this to a head, I think, is the COVID situation. But when you step back, and maybe we can make that screen a little bigger, Damin. Town Hall was built in 1983, and so much changed since then. Changes in information technology, the population and business growth of the town, and the services that the municipal staff has provided has also evolved. Many departments have grown. There wasn't even an IT department, I would guess, in 1983, and a couple have relocated. And as I think you all know, the demand for meeting space has grown tremendously in town. It's not unusual on a weeknight to have every conference room booked. So the current pandemic is forcing change as we speak on how employees interface with the public and each other. And with the new school project coming, who knows what that means for how a department or two may relocate as the center school becomes available. So a combination of all these factors, and especially COVID, is drastically altering office design. And on the next page, you'll see just one example of an article that's there that I'll get to, that's right there. That is an example of how you can read all over in the literature how office designs are changing. And this is just the front cover of an article that I can get to you in its entirety if you're interested. So Damin, if you can go back, please. Nope, back. There you go. So what have we done as a result of COVID over the past few months? Well, the first thing we did back in very early July, starting late June, we put up plastic shower curtain liners between the workstations. We bought about 40 of them and put them up rather quickly. We put up laminated glass sneeze shields at all service counters at 5 buildings in town. That cost us about $19,000. And ordered and soon to go up are polycarbonate shields between the workstations, replacing the plastic shower curtain liners. That's actually coming in just a shade under $12,000. So our hope is that those temporary measures are going to be part of our FEMA reimbursement claim under that declaration. In fact, we've already submitted the first two last Wednesday or last Thursday, actually. So they're already part of our FEMA claim. And then we started looking at, geez, those are all temporary solutions. Let's start looking at something more permanent. So we had Jerry go out and talk to office supply companies, and they gave us a price to add additional partitions between all the workspaces. And that came up at about $30,000. And with that, we would have still had an office that was really kind of just put together and not looking as nice as it could, and really was still not an ideal situation on how you would establish our town hall, given everything I said in the opening paragraph. So what Steve asked that we do is we take a longer term approach, and we put together what I call a defined a scope of work document, some design criteria, and an approach. And part of that approach calls for doing some best practice analysis, seeking inputs from other towns, talking to OPM, OSHA, and Department of Public Health on what office standards are going forward, and meeting with office equipment suppliers. So with that longer term plan in mind, before we spend that $30,000, what would our new town hall look like? Well, we hope to have a preliminary recommendation to you in October. But we don't even know the cost, because we don't have all the inputs yet to really come up with any options. But if we were to take a guess, and it strictly is a guesstimate, the first thing that the professionals are telling us is that we should hire an interior design consultant, and that'll be about $15,000. We're going to probably have to do some rewiring, relighting, some HVAC modifications, and that's going to cost some money. And then, depending on what we choose to do, maybe not partitions, maybe cubicles. Maybe we redefine some of the workflow at various departments. That can be a rather big price tag. Now, if we use the $128,000 for steep, there's the net that would be back to the town, the net cost after the $128,000. Again, I recognize this is a very wide range, but we're just getting started. And this is really, I'm putting it out there just kind of for discussion. So if we can go to the next page. Okay, we cover that one. One more, Damin. So you may not have been in town hall since we shut it down, but right there on the top picture is an example of the shower curtain liners that are around every workstation at town hall where there's more than one desk in an office space. That's kind of how it looks today. If you go to the bottom picture, these are the glass shields that are in the town clerk's office. Kind of hard to see, but you can see that laminated glass with the aluminum post right across the front of the counter. And as you look through the glass, you can actually see a curtain shower liner behind one of the desks. So that's kind of how our town hall is set up today, with shower curtains and glass shields. I should mention the glass shields, besides being a town hall, there's 2 at the senior center, there's 1 at Park and Rec, there's 3 at the library, and we put a shield up at WPCA as well. Next page. So this is the document that we put together to kind of help us frame this redesign. You know, who's looking at this? Right now it's Jerry and I. What's our scope of work and our design criteria, and what's our approach? So I kind of talked about that in my opening comments, but here's the document that we're working from as kind of a guideline on how we work over the next couple months. Next page. And I guess this is the last page. Here's just a couple examples of things we can look at to help give us some input. This came out of OPM only a couple weeks ago. It's an example of where the state's working to give us some websites and places we can go to get ideas around best practices. And here's an example of a guideline document. And on the bottom of this page is actually an OSHA document that talks about workstation guidelines. Now, this is all pre-COVID. So, but it's an example of where these are the kind of things we'll look at before we really, I feel comfortable making a recommendation. The situation is still very fluid, obviously, but these are the kind of things we're looking at as part of this approach. So that is the all I have to say when it comes to redesigning Town Hall and what we're doing. Before I move to the next steep application idea, are there any questions regarding Town Hall redesign?
Greg, how will the changes affect the meeting space? What are your thoughts on that? I see some of the rooms that are not going to be changed up, but how will the meeting space be affected?
Well, honestly, on our initial pass, I wasn't planning on spending any time remodeling room 133 or 135.
Yep.
The only one I think we would consider is 129, which is next to Department of Public Works downstairs. And really, until the decision's made, about 40%, I take that back, around 20% of the floor space at Town Hall is Board of Ed space. And until you really decide on what you're going to do with that space, I'm not saying they're going to move or they're not going to move, but with the whole center school and the school realignment thing, if they were to move, it'd really be hard to come up with an optimum layout or redesign until you knew what we were going to be doing with the Board of Ed space.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I have more of a statement than a question. I have always been, I've always kind of valued town perception. And I see the need here and I see the direction we're going. But with an antiquated police station and a prehistoric library, what are we looking at? What is the town looking at if we spend $250,000 renovating Town Hall when we have those other two buildings in the state they are? Not that I am against this. I'm not against this. It's just a comment.
No, that's a good comment. Harry, the issue becomes one, in this case, we are trying to make it much safer for our employees if, God forbid, another pandemic comes through, because we need to be up and operating and we can't have desks touching each other anymore. The whole way we do this, we got to rethink it. So it's primarily for me, although I would like to adjust and look at workflows and how things, and Greg is doing a really good job on this, the workflows it's COVID-19 related. Our Parks and Rec people, there's 3 people in the building, they're each in their own office. And we have a sneeze shield for any of the public that comes in. We don't have people at the police station. It's very similar. They're separated out. The police officers are not in the building most of the time. The chief and the major and the captain each have their own offices. Their assistant has her own space. So we don't have the need, just from that standpoint, to make any changes there. And I agree with you, but if we're looking at a new police station, we're talking probably somewhere between $14 and $20 million. If we're looking at a library, same thing. You're looking at $14 to $16 million. This is more just to keep people safe and at the same time, make the workflow work a little better. So it's a little bit different. I see your point.
Well, and again, the main reason why I asked this is really, although there's probably only 3 people listening or 5 people listening, to give people an idea of why we're doing it. I agree. I think this is a great plan. I just, we need to just make sure that people understand we're not just overlooking our other buildings.
No, we're not. Remember, we have our 10-year plan, and with the kind of rates we're getting on our bonding, it's going to open up one heck of a lot of capability on the town's part in the next few years to do one of those projects. Right? We were talking about 30-year bonds. Now we got a 20-year bond. It's gonna be a big plus for us. But this is something where we're talking about, we have employees who are gonna say to us, and I think the schools are gonna have the same problem. I don't feel safe coming into this building. I'm too close to the person next to me. How do I know they don't have COVID-19 and are gonna give it to me? And the shower curtains, and you've seen them, they look like hell. All right, they're a good temporary solution, and we're going with the polycarbonate shields that come down. But we should think about, even if we don't approve this tonight, how we do that and to redesign these offices. So one, we can grow the offices. When and if we need, we can add staff. We're coming apart at the seams here, perhaps add meeting space. There are a lot of things we could do. And the thing that kicked this off was the STEEP grant that has to be filed by August 14th. You know, I was going to plan next year to put in a request to redesign the offices. But this is a way we might be able to offset a big hunk of that cost as we move forward. Because I'm not interested in taking on a lot of debt over the next couple of years if we can possibly avoid it.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great plan. And again, it's not that I'm not in favor of this. I just, what you said needs to be said so people.
Right. The other thing, Greg and I discussed this, and I went to Francis Pickering, who's the executive director of Westcog, and he has some very close connections with the state. And I asked him, well, what do you think would be a better project from an approval standpoint from OPM? Which project, the Still River Greenway extension or the office redesign, would be looked at more favorably? And he came back to me with an interesting comment. He says, there's no doubt your office redesign could be COVID related, but Steve, so is the Still River Greenway, can be considered COVID related. And I said, well, why do you say that? And he said, well, you're creating more space where people can get outside and exercise safely. He said he thinks the Still River Greenway extension would be looked upon as favorably as an office redesign from a COVID-19 standpoint. And the advantage of the Still River Greenway extension is we would only pay about $18,000 out of pocket because we have the $207,000 grant. And this would, if we got the full 128, then the town would only have to put up 18,000 to get one of the designs we preferred. Remember that last design nobody really liked that much?
Yes.
So it's a judgment. Sue, what do you think?
Well, I know land use had requested changes to their space. They were on top of each other. Unfortunately, it was something that we couldn't keep in the budget for them. I'll always say that health and safety is going to come first. I think it's unfair almost of, the grant asking for a decision by August 14th, the submission deadline. It's a toss-up. I would love to see the Greenway extended, but we do have the Greenway already. And I know Greg was going to talk about that tonight.
So why don't we have Greg talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. What just concerns me is that we're spending so much money in all different areas with such an unknown hanging over our heads. I mean, if we get this vaccine and everything is fine by January, and, here we spent money all over, between the schools and just getting everyone safe. Of course, we don't know what we don't know. So it's hard to make that decision.
That's true. But one of the things, on the office redesign, we would probably have to spend some money, at least to hire the consultant to come in, work with us, design the space, estimate the cost, lay out a general plan for what we would want to do. And so that would be 15 or 20,000. If it comes in at 500,000, we go, we can't do this, not now. And remember, we're not planning to do this until at the earliest next year.
And
We
why
just
is,
want to apply for the grant to do it.
okay.
What, Harry?
No. Yeah, no, I answer my own question.
So I have a question too. So Greg has already submitted the changes that we've made to our offices already for FEMA.
Right.
Any changes now, which would be COVID related, because we're, trying to make it, again, health and safety for our employees, will any of that be able to go towards FEMA? And then we don't
No.
need to use this.
Yeah, no, FEMA specifically says they will not fund permanent changes.
They'll
Right.
take care of shower curtains, but not
Yeah.
something that, okay.
Yeah, they're very clear about that. They're very clear about that.
So Steve, we're choosing one or the other, either the
Right.
green.
Yep. We have to make a choice. You want Greg to just go over the Still River Greenway real quickly again?
Next
Greg, would you
page.
do that for us?
Yep, next.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it's only one page.
Yeah.
So let's shrink that down so we can get all the numbers on one page. Thank you. Okay, so back on February 3rd, I made I know I made a presentation to you, and I showed you everything except the last column. And you may recall, I talked about the different options. I showed you the maps. And option 3 came about because it was a lower cost opportunity, and Park and Rec kind of bought into it. In fact, they bought into it, and now Mary says it's kind of grown on her, if I can paraphrase what she said. So option 3 basically sends the trail through the gravel parking lot on Pocono Road, just north of the firehouse, along the roadway, alongside the little park, and ties into the existing trail. And we got that down to a total cost of $410,000 back in February. So now we look at today's update. Well, I called it July 31st. We've taken a couple things out of that project. Steve challenged us to get that number down to 0 cost to the town. Well, I got it down to 18,000. And what we took out of option 3 is we took out the concrete steps that Park and Rec asked for. That's what gets you down to the band shelter, the pavilion. They're wooden steps. They're still wooden steps. And this project had $25,000 to put concrete steps there down to the pavilion. We also are going to reuse some of those big timber beam rails that go right along the roadway that separate the park from the road. So we knocked out, I don't know, $10,000 or $15,000 from that. So those are the changes we made since option 3 back in February. And we still have that $207,000 community connectivity grant that's valid. Now we can apply $128,000 from STEEP, and that'll leave us $18,000 short, or what we'll call our town contribution to that STEEP grant. So that is the update. That's the second thing we're recommending we can use the STEEP money for. One last comment. One thing we took out of option 3, if we want to jack up that $18,000 any, is we took out the home run fence. If you look at option 3 from February 3rd, there's a home run fence that we eliminated, and it would separate the trail from the home run area of that ball field. So we kind of took that out. We can maybe put that back. And that's the other thing we can possibly consider doing. So that's option 3 revised, and those would be the numbers if we were to use our STEEP money for this project.
Greg, as far as that fence goes,
Yeah.
and I think I am correct in this statement, we're talking about 6 to 8-year-old kids who are going to be lucky to get it out of the infield. So if there is an area that we can cut, I would think very safely it would be a home run fence.
Yeah.
We
Well,
do
we've
get
got-
some older teams playing there, but I think, Harry, you're right. It's a rare ball that's going out that far.
Yeah.
You could add.
When I look at this, if we took the STEEP grant out, the 128,000, again, I kind of agree with Sue. We already have the Greenway. We could make some additions to it. We can't make what we want to. but when it comes to vital places, I would say the town hall is really the pulse of our town. And, you know, with the amount of people going in and out at a very close range, I'm not sure how I could vote to, you know, to spend the money on the Greenway.
Yeah. The Greenway is more attractive because we put less of our own money up for it.
Right.
It's less attractive in that I think there's a higher, more immediate need to get our employees really safe.
And not only the employees, but the people,
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, because we do have people who do come, especially in land use, they do come past the counter and are sitting down at that back table with our employees, and we just can't allow that right now. And not for the foreseeable future until we figure out better ways to do this. So you would lean towards the redesign?
Yeah, I mean, it's pick your poison. I would, at this point, I think I don't know, Sue, what do you think? I don't know.
No, Harry, I think you made some good points. Again, it's something that we're going to have to do anyway. So if we can get $128,000 toward it, you know, I would take that. Help us out.
Yeah, the only thing that bothers me, and Greg was pretty clear on this, we just don't know what it's going to cost us. Right?
Yeah.
We're just going to have to wait and see.
But we'll have a better,
Yeah.
We'll have a better
There's a-
idea in October.
Oh, yeah, I think we'll have a much better idea. And remember, the only thing I think that we actually will have to spend money on is the design, you know, and the consultant to come in. And if it comes in crazy, we just say, okay, I'm sorry, this is not going to work for us right now. But we do have 3 years. So we could appropriate some money next year, and then the town could appropriate money in the following year to, if it came to that level of expense.
Because meanwhile, we will have the safety partitions for our employees that we're planning on getting right now anyway. That'll be up
Yeah,
enough at
right.
end of August. So it's
They're
not
gonna
like
be
they
sheet-
won't be safe, right?
No, they'll be safe, but it's gonna look,
Right.
it's gonna look dreadful. Okay,
Okay.
we can live with dreadful for a little while.
Yeah,
You know,
okay. Just as long as we're not, you know, passing it off and the safety, you know, portion
No.
of it isn't going to be there. So, okay,
No.
all right.
So I'm getting the feeling we're leaning towards the redesign of the offices. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
what do you think, Steve? I mean,
I agree with both of you. I think the redesign of the offices is a more urgent need, although it is more expensive and we'd have to put up more money. I really like the Still River Greenway project, but as Sue said, we do have a Greenway already, and we might be able to do that at some point in the future. So I would lean towards the office redesign.
well, how about this thought, Steve? And I right now, again, we're hoping that things are going to start to turn and that we are going to be able to start to get some relief as far as a vaccine or whatever. So by the time we need to do this, I mean, if we did spend the money on if we did go with the Greenway, there is a chance we wouldn't have to spend all this money on the town hall. So the money, it could be considerably less than what we would anticipate right now. So do we just kind of piggybacking on what Sue said, do we just pile more money into something that we may not need in 6 months and not disregard, but put aside the Greenway? Or do we go ahead and put it into the Greenway and I don't want to say roll the dice, but see where we are. And maybe we're not going to need this much money.
Yeah, I see your point, but if we do redesign the office, we're going to, in effect, like the government says, we're going to harden our resources. That if another pandemic came along, some other bug came along, we would be much more able more quickly to keep all of our staff in the office, keep us up and running, even if we got a vaccine this time. You know, we're talking, this is a 20-year project that we would redesign for. So we would be hardening our offices and making them safer for the long term, not just for the short term. The short term, we
And-
have the sheets.
I mean, I see what you're saying. I'm not sure if we want to run our town, you know, I mean, this is something that's, what's the last time they've had one of these, you know, 80 years ago? I mean, I'm not,
19,
I know just what you're saying, but I'm not sure we want to start, you know, fortressing our town for things that might happen that most likely aren't going to happen again. Or,
I agree with you 100%, but we still, even if this never came up, the COVID-19, we were going to be coming to the town next year with a plan to redesign our offices
right.
because it's a rabbit warren in land use.
And Steve, once we decide on a project, we can't flip.
No, I don't think so. The way we read the steep, you agree, Greg?
You cannot rescope. Once you give them your scope of work, it cannot be rescoped.
Okay.
You know, and again, my thought is in 9 months from now, how much money are we going to have to have spent on town hall? I'm trying to say this without being too confusing. I'm just wondering if we need to spend this much money now, with the fact being it should be better. Conditions should be considerably better to where we wouldn't have to go to these extents. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here. I see
your point. I see your point.
I don't know.
Yeah, to counter that, the only thing I would say is we are going to have to redesign our offices at some point. It's a mess downstairs, particularly in land use fire marshal building. You've been in there.
No, I know.
It doesn't it's very illogical. The workflows don't work well. So,
But again, I think that there is a very, very good chance that within the next 2 years, TSO will be out of town hall. It'll most likely be in center school. And so that would open up a lot more space. I don't know. I'm having a hard time with this one, Steve. I'm sorry, but
yeah. So what do you guys want to do? Do you think we should apply for the steep grant or just walk away?
no,
We can do that too.
I think that I think we need to do one of them. I think we need to do one of them.
I do too.
I don't know, Sue. What?
Well, I think I would lean toward the town hall offices. And then, you know, depending on what they come back with in October, if it's going to cost too much money, well, maybe we don't do it all at the same time. You know, we do what we can. We use the money that they give us and, you know, see where we are at that time when we're ready to do it, you know, what needs to be done.
Right.
we have a jump on it.
The most critical need is land use. So
Oh, yeah, it is.
I don't think Greg, we wouldn't be rescoping by just saying, hey, we don't have enough money to do it all, so we're going to do this section. Do you think, Greg?
No. In fact, the application allows you to talk about applying your money in phases.
Easy.
So we can say this is a town hall redesign project. Phase 1 will be the land use office. You know, phase 2 will be whatever. So the grant actually allows and asks the question, is this a phased project? And what phase are you applying for?
Greg, can I ask you a question? You were talking that it has to be matched. Does it have to be matched 50-50 or can we get, you know, maybe it costs us, you know, $30,000, but we're getting 128, you know, for the steep grant?
It's a
Or
very
does it
good,
have-
it's a very good question, Sue, and I'm just puzzled by this because it says you are required to make a match, but there is no minimum. You know, so what the heck does that mean? You know,
Can you $1?
yeah, but I got to say, you have to remember too, these are competitive grants, and the more you put up, and the more you have a solid case with a good story, and it all flows together, the better chance you have of getting approved. I'll make another comment. Another question on the application is this grant consistent with your POCD, the local POCD and the state POCD? And, you know, I can argue the Still River Greenway project does, but the COVID thing, whoever thought about that when we wrote a POCD?
Nobody.
So the grant application's many, many, many pages. And I'll tell you, I can say we'll be more favorable with this project or the other. But the thing that kind of drives me is the number one priority on this solicitation is capital projects COVID related. And that says a lot about where they want to see this money headed, you know?
And
I
I would
just
have to
personally-
believe, yeah, redoing land use and getting people, more, apart, they're just on top of each other right now. I mean, that's, that if you can't, say that's COVID related, I don't know what you could.
So we could, if we decide to phase this, and I think that's a really good idea, we phase it. Phase one is land use. And then we don't ask for 360,000 from the Board of Finance. Greg, what do you think we could do just land use for? I know you're shooting in the dark here.
Yeah, I'd probably, if we need a number by next Wednesday, I'd probably sit down with Jerry and we'd probably make a couple phone calls to equipment suppliers.
Mhm.
And then we would get a better rough number than me picking one out of the air.
Yeah, and then we
Okay.
could always meet quickly next
Great.
week,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so why don't we do that? So I would, you know what, we don't have to make a motion tonight. I think we agree. The office redesign, Harry, you agree?
The longer we're talking about this, the more I'm really hedging, because again, I'm thinking we're going to be spending $500,000 on school equipment and
Mhm.
on school, which a lot of them, which in 5 months we may not be using, and that's for 3 months. That whatever it is, 450 or 500,000 is for only 3 months.
No, that's for the whole year.
I thought that was for the first 3 months.
No, first 3 months is 206,000.
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Well, even that, we're a $500,000. I'm just thinking, what is the least of the two? I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, if I were to vote no, I would certainly support doing this. I just don't know consciously if I can go. It would be less to do the Greenway. I don't know.
So can we say that we will table it for tonight and plan on a meeting before is it the 14th?
Yeah,
So
we
we
have
can see
before
what
the
Greg comes
12th.
up with for land use?
Yeah, we have to do it before the 12th. The Board of Finance meets on the 12th. So
Oh, okay.
we'd have to do it on the 10th or 11th.
Okay, that's fine.
That would be fine.
Unless you want to have a joint meeting with them next Wednesday, you can do it together, both boards, but that'll be your decision.
Yeah. Yeah, let me talk to Glenn about that. So I would make a motion at this point in time to table this pending, get better numbers to phase this in, or starting with land use, then go to tax assessor, tax collector, and town clerk.
Right.
And try
And
to
we'll-
phase it out a little bit.
And have something that we were going to do anyway, and this way the grant can help us, same as the Greenway. We have a grant
Right.
to help us with the Greenway.
Right.
So we're gonna,
Yeah, okay. So I made a motion to table it. Any second?
I will second that.
I
All right,
think Harry
Harry's gonna
just, did.
second it?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
all
fine.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and then we'll just try to meet next week. It shouldn't take long. Thank you, Greg. We really appreciate it very, very
Yeah.
much.
And
Thank you,
Steve,
Greg.
Very useful.
Steve,
Aye.
thank you very much for offering to table that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no. We need to be careful about these things. And we want to get it right. Okay, I would make a motion, since Dr. Sullivan has been sitting patiently, and it looks like a very comfortable couch, that we move the discussion of his 5G technology to the next item. Do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Okay, all those
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Doctor, we have your letter. And I think, should I read it for the public? Because it's kind of important. What do you guys think? Why don't I
Sure.
just read it? So to the Brookfield Board of Selectmen from Raymond E. Sullivan, MD, Director of Public Health, dated July 15th, 2020. The subject is 5G cell service. I have been asked for my professional opinion regarding the safety of 5G technology and wireless radiation from a public health standpoint. Numerous articles and scientific publications have appeared in the press and on social media concerning this subject. Although wireless radiation has often been misrepresented as similar to other forms of radiation, The term is used by scientists to describe a type of energy that moves in waves. This subject includes broadcast radio and television signals, signals from baby monitors, and signals from remote controls. It also includes waves generated by cell phones. The scientific consensus, after taking into consideration both sides of the issue, is that there are no known health risks from all of the forms of RF energy at the low levels approved for everyday consumer use. The Federal Communication Commission regulates radio frequency emissions, including millimeter wave frequencies from 5G devices and equipment. It has adopted the recommendations of expert scientific organizations that have reviewed the science, including dozens of studies focused specifically on millimeter waves and established safe exposure levels. In December 2019, the FCC reaffirmed on a unanimous and bipartisan basis those safety standards. The National Institute of Health concluded, although many studies have examined the potential health effects of non-ionizing radiation from radar, microwaves, cell phones, and other sources, there is currently no consistent evidence that non-ionizing radiation increases cancer risk in humans, end quote. Recent National Toxicology Program study, though through one of its principal investigators, Michael Wyde, PhD, demonstrated that, quote, millimeter waves such as those used in 5G do not travel as far and do not penetrate the body as deeply as does the radio frequencies at the lower frequencies used in the current 2G, 3G, and 4G. Radio frequencies at the 5G millimeter wavelength will not penetrate to organs such as the brain, the heart, the adrenal gland, and such as alleged in other non-peer-reviewed articles. RF energy is simply not strong enough to cause cell or DNA damage, and limits for wireless devices are set at more than 50 times below the level at which heating caused by RF energy has been shown to be an observed effect. The Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers has assembled a list of dozens and dozens of studies on millimeter wave frequencies. It concluded that no scientific evidence establishes a causal link between wireless device use and cancer or other illnesses. The World Health Organization concluded, from all the evidence accumulated so far, no adverse short or long-term health effects have been shown to occur from the RF signals produced by base stations. New claims that COVID-19 pandemic is a direct result of the newer 5G technology have been completely debunked as nonsense and are believed to have originated from several foreign influences, which, interestingly enough, may have instituted the concept of harm from 5G technology. Lastly, the American Cancer Society, in which I have the greatest faith, concluded that RF waves given off by cell phones do not have enough energy to damage DNA directly or to heat body tissue. Because of this, it is not clear how cell phones may cause cancer. The ACS relies heavily on the surveillance, epidemiology, and end results data programs of the National Institutes of Health, which has found no correlation between cell phone technology, cell towers, or the newer 5G and cancer or other illnesses to date. Respectfully submitted, Raymond E. Sullivan, MD, FACS, Director of Public Health, Town of Brookfield. Do we have any questions, or Doc, would you like to give a brief overview of your feelings on this?
Sure. Certainly there is much evidence on both sides of the fence on this issue. It's a very controversial issue. And I respect the opinions of others who have, taken the course that 5G technology may be considerably harmful in the future or currently. But the fact is that the evidence suggests that 5G technology may actually be safer because of the fact that it does not penetrate the body to the depths that earlier forms of generation technology do so. NIH, or National Institutes of Health, commissioned the National Toxicology Program, or NTP, to do a study. They spent $30 million on this over 10 years. They were using rats and mice and demonstrated, in point of fact, that that radio frequency may induce certain types of tumors in rats, particularly male rats. And that included such things as neural tumors such as schwannomas and gliomas in the brain, and in female mice, pheochromocytomas, and also in male mice, heart tumors. So, but the problem is that the study was based on the exposure of rats and mice over a 2-year period, 9 hours a day to complete body radio frequency exposure, not to the localized exposure that would occur during normal cell phone use. I certainly would advocate for distance use of cell phones by virtue of the fact that there is this controversy currently brewing. And I would certainly recommend earbuds or other connections such that the cell phone does not have to be applied directly to the ear. But given the fact that millions and millions of individuals worldwide are currently using cell phones, and the fact that we've actually seen declines in the frequency of most cancers, there does not seem to be a correlation at this time between radio frequency waves that fall somewhere between television and microwaves and the incidence of cancers.
Thank you. Sue, Harry, any questions?
Yeah, I do. Dr. Sullivan, I have a question. The information that you're giving us now, how does this relate to the towers, not cell phones, but to the towers that are being put up in the neighborhoods? Are they more of a concern for residents who have towers up next to their house or, right on their borders of their yards?
The fact is that towers vary from anywhere from 50 to 200 feet. The higher up they are, perhaps the better for any ground exposure in and around the base of the tower. The broadcast waves go out laterally. They do not go down, but they do go out laterally, and there's some fall off, much the same as firing a bullet. At lower speeds, it'll fall off closer. At higher speeds, it'll fall off further. But the fact is that the American Cancer Society, with whom I have the greatest respect, and also the radiation experts at Memorial Sloan Kettering, perhaps the most famous and influential cancer hospital in the country, all feel that cell towers do not increase the risk of cancer at this time.
Doc, a lot of these installations are going to be put on telephone poles. Obviously, 5G doesn't have the reach that some of the other technologies have. So they'll be putting these, every 500 yards, 600 yards in neighborhoods, hanging them off a telephone pole. Do you see that as a concern?
I can only say that others, including the American Cancer Society experts and most medical folks, would lean towards the opinion that they do not provide a concern.
Okay. Sue, do you have any questions, concerns, issues?
I don't have any questions. I just did want to say that I have great respect for Doc Sullivan, and I believe it was Jack Ludwig who had spoken last time.
Yeah.
And given his part of it all. And of course, our scientific community. I believe in science, and again, thank you so much. But I don't know if we have all the answers. And what does concern me with your letter, Dr. Sullivan, is the World Health Organization, and where it states from all evidence accumulated so far, or the American Cancer Society, because it is not clear how cell phones may cause cancer. And I just wanted to, kind of put in a little story of my own. My great-grandfather was a pharmacist. And after he passed, through the family, he had a logbook of his compounds, his cures, for everything that was happening back in the 20s and all that. And under C, he had cancer. And he had compounds of what was going to cure cancer. And he crossed it off. Apparently what it was, it just didn't work. And so my concern is, we don't know what we don't know and what we're going to find out 50 years from now. And I would hate to believe that we didn't do everything that we could to keep everyone as safe as we could. So I myself would rather not see these being put up in our towns. And that's just my concern.
Yeah, I think that's a fair and legitimate concern. I tend to agree with you, Sue. Things seem to be working pretty well now without 5G being hung on every pole. The problem I have is that we have virtually the only control we have is for aesthetic reasons or safety reasons from a standpoint. One of these installations is blocking a line of sight out somebody's driveway or out onto a main road. So we have virtually no control over this. And I know I've said this before, but the people who do have this control are our congressmen and senators who bring pressure upon the FCC to do what they think is right. We don't have 100% of the answers. I think between what Dr. Sullivan and Jack Ludwig had told us, it's very clear. There are two sides to this story, but I agree with you. We have to err on the side of the science. And I trust Dr. Sullivan and I trust Mr. Ludwig, who both are highly educated people, one in physics, one in medicine. Doc, your work was in college oncological surgery, is that correct? Right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So we have two experts, and I would tend to take their advice now, but keep an open mind to further evidence that this might change.
And Steve, would that lead us though? I mean, would we, saying that we, at this point, it doesn't appear that this is harmful, but as Sue said, we don't know what we don't know. And with that being said, could we make a statement or saying we don't want these on the polls. We understand we have a certain amount of restrictions as to having a say, but just to publicly make a statement that we are not for putting the 5G housings on our polls, and we're not. I wouldn't think that we would be doing anything wrong by saying that. We're certainly not marching on Hartford saying we're going to block you from doing it, but we're making a statement that we don't feel that we don't want them.
I don't have a problem with that. The only thing I would have a problem with it is promulgating ordinances or laws that we know are not going to be enforceable and spending the money doing that, and then fighting it in court. That would just cost us money.
Can we as a town go to, our congressmen and senators and say, this is our belief and we hope that you're doing everything that you possibly can on your level, which is, stronger than ours.
Yeah.
I would just like to make a more visible effort, even though we understand that it looks as though we are safe. I appreciate everything that Dr. Sullivan said, and I certainly believe what he said, but there is an unknown. And I would just like to make, let me rephrase that. I think it would be wise for us to make a more public stand or statement, even if it is just going to, like Sue said, to higher ups, and stating that we really, don't want these. Are you doing everything you can to, to keep these from being on our telephone poles?
Yeah. So why don't we do this? Why don't I create a letter for the Board of Selectmen to look at that will state that, and then evidence our request to our congressional leaders and the FCC to look at this more carefully, to ensure that these are safe, and state that we don't want these in our town until we have absolute proof beyond anybody's questioning that this is safe. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
Sue, would you support that?
I would support that. I would feel much better about that.
Okay, I make the motion that we do that and have the first selectman create a letter for review by the Board of Selectmen that we will send to our congressional representatives in the FCC along the lines of what we discussed today. Do I have a second?
A second. Does that include FERC?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the FCC is the one who controls us, not FERC.
Okay, okay.
FERC is Cannibal Lake. We're not happy with
It's
them either.
Energy, right? Federal energy?
Right,
So-
yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, carries 3-0. Thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
meeting has been,
I would just add that I have no objections to the motion and the vote that was taken.
great,
Because there's
thank you.
just there's too much controversy on both sides of this issue right now.
There
Thank you.
is. And I'll
Thank
ask you to review anything that we put out, Doc, for accuracy before we actually send it out. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan.
I'm sorry, Harry?
I just said thank you to the doctor.
Oh, yes.
Frozen up.
I lost my agenda. How can I be, here it is. So
welcome.
our next item, we can go to, I make a motion, Marcia, I see you're back on. So I make a motion, we return to our agenda and go to our financial report by the Director of Finance. Do I have a second?
I would second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Marcia. Aye.
Okay. So the updates, I think Steve gave you an update on our bond rating and our bonding. We filed the FEMA claim that we have to file first. We have to wait for that to come back and then we can file the state claim. We filed the registrar's claim, we filed a LoSiP claim. So we've been pretty busy. Our next order of business will be to try and close out last year and prepare our financial statements. So that all the invoices were due to us on Friday. So we'll start closing that out this week. So we can give you more information. But one of the things that we did was just looking at our own COVID claims, our own COVID costs, that just like the Board of Ed, we should be doing a budget for COVID and getting it approved. And so we've worked pretty hard on narrowing down what known costs we have now and what savings we might have now. If Damin, could you let me share my screen? All right, I think she's.
You can share screen now, can you?
Okay, yep, I can see it now. So if we look at our costs that on the screen, that we have a few things that we're doing. We've got wiping down surfaces at the police station, at the town hall, and Cadogan Park and the beach restrooms. Those are all done extra. And that's highlighted in green over here because I believe 75% of that will be covered by FEMA. They specifically state that they would cover wiping down public surfaces. So all I can do is what they state. So I believe 75% will be covered by FEMA. So this is the first quarter that we'd like to approve now. And this is the annual, just to get an idea of the costs. So the highlighted in green, here's the reimbursement for the first quarter, potential reimbursement, because I hate to promise anything that they say they're going to do. We have other wages. We have a door monitor that when we started this, we had to take temperatures of people at the door. And so we've committed to have a door monitor through September 30th. And then we're going to see what do we need then. We need it for Now we've had the property taxes, so we've had a lot of people come into the door. But in this budget, we only have through September 30th, and then we want to reassess and see how it is that we could maybe get rid of that extra cost. Concerts in the park, trying to get people socially distanced, is this cost. Both of those, I don't know that we have any grants at this time to cover. We have PPE for gloves and masks. They should be covered by FEMA. So they're highlighted in green with 75% coming in. And then we have some other ones. Greg was talking about the dividers between the offices. That's right here. We had desk shields for the registrars that should be 100% covered by the state grant for that. And we have additional absentee ballots that there may or may not be funding for this, but right now the Town Clerks Association is telling our town clerk, don't expect funding. And then right now we seem to be in all right shape with unemployment, that we had some big cases that have dropped off. But we have a number of smaller cases out there. When someone applies for unemployment, they prorate the wages so that we might have part-time people that we're paying unemployment, even though that we haven't laid them off. They've been laid off from their main job. But right now we think that we're covered there. I just didn't want to forget it, so I put it in here. And then we have some places where we have potential savings. CCM, Connecticut Council of Municipalities, has told us that we pay 100% of our dues, and they will reimburse us 50%, just because they know everybody's hurting. Sometimes they wait till the end of the year. In the last 3 or 4 years, they've waited to the end of the year to give us a rebate. Essentially, they're giving it to us up front. So we know that we've got a rebate coming in of $5,000 or half of that fee. Public notices, right now that we don't have to do, the town clerk and the land use office doesn't have to do public notices in the newspaper. We have approximately, we have 25,000 in the budget for advertising, most of which is public notices. We don't know when that's going to end, that the governor will have to come up with another executive order to say, start that again. Hopefully he doesn't. But for right now, if he doesn't do that through October 31st, we'll save 8,000. And if he doesn't do it for the whole year, 24,000. And then Social Security, pardon me? Social Security and Medicare, that we have a savings there because the Parks and Rec self-sustaining fund, not quite self-sustaining because we pay their Social Security and Medicare out of the general fund. Well, they've got a lot of reductions this year, just running a skeleton program. So we'll have some savings on that FICA and Medicare. So for the first tranche here, that we would look for a transfer for each of these lines. The way we're going to do it is to put it in a separate line that's got a COVID project number to it, so we can pull it out, we can isolate it, that we can see it separately. We would want to add money to all of these. We would want to subtract money from the potential savings for these amounts. And then we would have to have money from our contingency of for COVID costs of $28,000. The revenue is accounted for separately. So we do have some money in the budget for the revenue for now, but this transaction are the expenditures. So we're going to ask for a motion to make a transfer into these lines from this line right here. Any costs? Any questions on the costs? Oh, you want to make the motion first?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we make a transfer of $28,179.37 from our contingency fund to the lines listed that Marcia just went over on this report. as given to the Board of Selectmen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion. Sue, Harry, any questions?
No,
I don't think I have any questions, Steve.
Oh, that's good. So not hearing any questions or further comments. All those in favor? Oh, no, and I amend my motion to forward to the Board of Finance for their review and possible adoption. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Okay, all three carried. Thank you very much, Marcia.
Right.
Next month, Marcia, can we get revenue and expense? We'll have a little better idea, right?
Correct, that taxes ended today as far as the due date. She'll still take a few more days to figure out where we will stand from, because there's still time for the mail to come in. So right now she was thinking that we might be similar to last year, which is good news because we were worried that the tax collections would drop. But no promises yet. Let's wait till she finishes her process.
And we, just to remind everybody, we had about, what was it, 17 applications for about 300 and some odd thousand for deferrals for 90 days.
Yes,
So we should get that October, right? End of October? Okay.
yes.
Great. Anything else you would like to cover, Marcia?
No, thank you.
Okay. So moving on in our very long agenda. Item number 4, Homeland Towers Facility at 100 Pocono Road. I just wanted to have a discussion on this. There's no real action if we agree. Homeland Towers has offered to buy the tower from us. We've done the analysis. I don't think it's worth selling it to them. I think we get more revenue just renting it to them. And then every time they add a provider, which they haven't done yet, we get additional rent. So I would say stay right where we are.
I agree. I was looking at the math as well, and I thought, 16 years, but that's based off of what they're paying us right now, and they could add, I think it would be, yeah. I'm glad to hear you say that. Thank you.
Yeah, Harry, do you have any
I
comments?
agree. I'm fine with holding on.
Okay, so I would make a motion that the board direct the first selectman to send a letter to Homeland Towers, just telling them that we're not interested in selling the tower at this point in time. Do I have a second?
Yes, I
Second?
think it's
Who's second?
much more beneficial to the town.
Yeah, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I'll send that letter. Great. Now we move on to consent agenda. Sue, you want to do the consent agenda?
Sure. I make the recommended motion that the selectmen approve the items on the consent agenda. And I will tell you what we are approving. A, the selectmen approvals for routine matters, which is an agreement between the town and Public Works Highway Crew, Local 1303-371 of Council Number 4, AFSCME, AFL-CIO, dated July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2025. And then the Region 5 Homeland Security Grant Program Memorandum, Board of Selectmen meeting minutes from July 6th, July 20th, July 27th. We have employee changes. We have Steve DeFries, who has retired on 8/14. Thank you for your time. New position of Diane Eng is moving from Land Use Secretary to Police Administration in mid-August. And new position Christine Murphy, Assessor's Aide to Land Use Secretary in mid-August. We're releasing driveway bonds. It looks like there's 7 of them. And that's it for consent agenda.
Great. Just one comment on it. The agreement between the town and the Public Works is our labor contract with them. We settled it very successfully. We were looking at this since our last meeting, but it got to us late, so we left it for everybody to view and go over. There are no major changes. We do give them some salary increases. We did get a couple small concessions, and we gave up a couple small things, but it's very, very straightforward. And I'm glad it's for the length of time it is. It locks in where we're going to be for the next 5 years. Having said that, you made the motion. Did anybody second it?
Sue seconded it.
Sue seconded it? Okay. No, Sue made the motion.
I made the motion.
Harry seconded it.
I will second.
Harry
right?
second.
Okay. Having said that, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda as discussed, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3-0. Additional monthly agenda items. I would make a motion on the Center School Ad Hoc Committee that the selectmen reappoint the following members: Kevin Archer, Loretta Donovan, Frank Farrell, Bruce McDonald, Betsy McIlvaine, Don Mortifoglio, Richard Shalamian, Eve Sturdivant, and Robert Zinder for a new ad hoc committee from 8/30/20 to 2/1/21. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah.
2 seconds. Discussion. So they have just completed their report, which we got over the weekend.
Oh.
And we'll be sharing it with you in the next couple days, and we can invite them to come make a presentation to us. There's not a super rush on this. Probably, I would say October or November, right after we've had a chance to review it. And so we wanted to reappoint these people so they can come in and continue to do work with us. And we might ask them to do further work. They did a really good job. They spent a lot of time, and I'm very appreciative. I think we all are, of all the work they did. So having said that, any questions, comments, concerns?
I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah. All those in favor of reappointing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. Harry says aye. That carries. Still River Ad Hoc Committee, I recommend a motion that the selectmen reappoint the following members: Jay Annis, Bodan Dachau, Maureen Farrell, Jean Harnett, and Amy Combe for a new term of 8/3/20 to 8/2/21. Do I have a second? Somebody want a
second.
second?
I'll
Okay.
second that.
I'll let Harry second it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3 ways. On the Youth Commission, the motion is that the selectmen appoint the following: Liam Ania, Republican, as a regular member for the term of 7/6/20 to 2/7/22. Do I have a second? Harry, this is your guy.
Harry, did you want to do that?
Yes, I was.
Second. Any discussion?
Liam is coming on as a regular member after being a student member.
Yep.
And graciously accepted to do this. And I know the committee is very excited very excited to keep him on. He did a fantastic job. So thank you,
Yeah.
Liam.
I think that's great. You know, as people get older, young people get older, it's nice to see them stepping in. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries 3-0. And recommend a motion that the selectmen appoint Sharon E. Buteau, Jeffrey Braun, Gaspar Mortarano, Betsy McIlvaine, and Mike Meckley, I'm getting that bad, for a term of 8/3/20 to 7/5/21 on the COVID-19 Local Long-Term Recovery Committee, which is being chaired by Mel Buteau. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, you'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mel, would you like to make a comment on this? Can we invite Mel? Do everybody agree to make a comment? Go ahead,
Yes.
Mel.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank all those who volunteered to help on this committee. The main purpose of the committee is to reach out to our neighbors and friends to find out what their unmet needs are. Their unmet needs refer to anything from food, shelter, even diapers that the residents require. After speaking to various organizations and individuals, I must say that Brookfield residents seem to be handling this unfortunate situation pretty well. Of course, this could change, and the committee still has to continue to reach out to our community. We will be sending out information on how to contact us. The first thing is we do have a phone number, which is 203-775-7317. And we do have an email address, which is ltc@brookfieldct.gov. At this time, I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for helping us get this program started. I especially want to thank Ginny for giving her time regarding this valuable program. I will be meeting with the committee members sometime, hopefully this week. Right? I'll be sending out an email trying to organize this sooner. And that's all I have to say at this time. Any questions?
Thank you, Mel. Thank you for doing this. We really appreciate it. And we'll be asking you to come to us regularly over the next year, maybe quarterly, just to give us a quick update on what you've seen and what you've got so far. Is that okay with you?
And I'll
Okay,
also
great.
be reaching out to you if I need any help.
Great, thank you very much. So all those in favor of appointing these people to the Long-Term Recovery Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, carries 3-0. And that covers the main portion of our agenda. Now we have public comment. Do we have anyone who would like to make public comment?
Steve, I would like to just say a quick word. I want to talk a little bit about Steve Harding, our state representative. You know, he has done such a great job. He's really brought the state representative position back to Brookfield. Previously, you know, Steve attends just about every meeting that he can. He's very active. He's very visual. And I think that most people are very happy with the job he's doing. And I think he's really a credit to our town. That being said, today, Governor Lamont, you know, approved or passed signed the police reform bill. And Steve did not vote for it. You know, there's a section in there about qualified immunity. And, you know, Steve, in defense of our police, in defense of their personal privacy, you know, that is why he voted the way he voted. He was doing his duty to help protect our policemen who protect us every day, so that they can't just, so that they will have the protection of their police department. And I know that in public, in social media, there was a comment made pertaining to him by one of the leaders of one of our town committees. And it's how disappointing they are in him, how grossly disappointing they are that he voted that way. And the reason why I'm making the statement is these types of statements are why people don't want to volunteer. He's doing what his job. He's representing us. He's trying to protect our policemen. And if you don't disagree with them, or excuse me, if you do disagree with them, you disagree with them. But when people come in to serve and they're treated like this, it was just a very, to me, a malicious statement. And this is why we have a hard time getting qualified people to come in and really want to serve. And I just wanted to make that statement in defense of Stephen. And just for people, if you have something to say, just think about what you're saying and the effects it can have on the people and other people. I can't speak more highly of Steve, the job he's doing, and how much of his heart he is putting into this for us. I just wanted to make that statement.
Great, thank you. You know, I agree with you. There is absolutely no place, none whatsoever in our government, and I think we all agree with this, and we work very hard for the lack of civility or rudeness or unkindness. We don't need it. You can disagree with somebody without being rude or unkind. You can, and you should. And that's why we don't allow it at our meetings, and we'll cut people off if they're doing that. On this issue, there's 45 items on that police accountability bill. I have some deep concerns about 2 of them. One is the indemnity. The second is on the de-escalation clause. I don't think it was completely thought out and well thought through. They created this bill in a period of, I don't know, 10, 14 days. They're undoing many of the things that have already been decided by the Supreme Court of the United States since 1963. And so when the state does this, if there's an argument or concern or a lawsuit, it's going to go through the state courts, then it's going to go to the federal courts, and then it's going to go up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court on many of these items that we're changing have already made decisions. So it's going to cause a lot of concern. And what I'm worried about is the liability for the town. There could be liabilities for the town we're not even aware of. I don't know of any insurance you can buy for police officers if they lose their qualified indemnity. And police officers won't want to serve if they don't have some form of indemnity. Now, no one has said, the problem we have here is Brookfield police are really good policemen. They do a good job. What this bill is talking about is not Brookfield's police, but they're being painted with the same broad brush as other police officers. And I think that's unfair, and I don't think it's the right thing to do. I mean, there are some very good things in this bill. More openness, more transparency, freedom of information. The registrar for policemen, if they've misbehaved, they cannot get reappointed in some other town because their records will be available at the state level. There are a lot of good things in this bill, but there's a couple of things that are going to cause us real problems. So,
Right, and I know that that's where Steve was coming from, and one of those problems is what you said with the with that area. And again, I felt he was doing his job. He was standing up for our policemen, and I thought it was unfair that he was treated that. I know it's social media, and I put zero credibility in social media. Unfortunately, a lot of people do put credibility in it, and I just thought it was unfair.
yeah, that's a fair point. Sue, do you want to say anything?
Well, I would just ask that Harry makes his statement as a resident of Brookfield
Yeah.
and not as the Board of Selectmen member.
Yes, so you're
I think we're kind of, if it wasn't a re-election year, I think we're kind of bordering on politics here. I'm not comfortable. But I would just say that if Harry can say, Harry Shaker and his address, and, this is my personal opinion.
What's your address, Harry, for the record?
Yes, this is Harry Shaker. I do apologize because I was going to say I'm speaking as a resident, and it's 87 Long Meadow Hill Road.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we got to be, Sue, you're absolutely right. We have to be very clear when we're speaking as individuals, not as selectmen.
Right.
And
Right.
keep that separation.
I should have done that, and I meant to do it, and I didn't, and I did.
That's okay. That's okay.
And my
We'll,
statement predicated on the fact that I'm a very close friend of Steve.
we'll understand where you're coming from. We do want to keep that division very, very clear. Comment, do we have anybody else who wants to make comment?
Yes, I'm here, Joan Polson.
Okay.
Hi.
Where do you
Hi,
live,
I wanted-
lady?
Hello? What?
Yeah, you have to tell us where you live, Joan.
Oh, 16 Twilight Lane.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for what you've done tonight and deciding to do whatever you can to make sure that this is safe before we allow it into our town. I'm very thrilled to hear that. I thank you so much. Sometime, you know what? I know you used to have coffee clutches where we could get together and talk. I mean, I have so much information about this, and it's all based on studying, not emotions or guesses. I mean, I've done a lot of studying on this. Maybe I could meet with you at one of your coffee clutches and talk to you more about what I've learned over the years about all of this stuff. Do we still have meetings like that somewhere or online?
Well, we have Zoom meetings now. If you look at our agenda, one is scheduled for August 25th, I think.
24th.
24th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, Zoe has been watching what's going on from Americans for Responsible Technology. They have a tremendous amount of knowledge about it and are still offering, there's a lawyer who offered to talk to you for free about this issue, who's been working in the field of EMFs and damages. So, and he worked for a telecom company before, until he understood what was really going on. He's an amazing guy. I spoke to him myself, and I think Zoe will get in touch with you and offer to be helpful in any way she can.
Okay.
Okay. So thanks
Yeah.
for everything, and have a good night.
You too. Thank you, Joan.
Yeah.
Comment.
Bye-bye.
Anybody else? Does anybody else want to make public comment?
No, I don't see anybody raise hand. No.
Okay, not seeing any more public comment. I will accept the motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. I
And you'll let
appreciate
us know about
For
the
special-
grant, our meeting next week.
it. Yes,